I made my first short film a couple of weeks ago, and it was both easier and harder than I thought it would be. I want to go through all the details from writing the script to shooting it to editing. So the idea for the script came from a book that I was reading by Anthony Bourdain. I won't get too much into it because you can just watch the short film. The idea occurred to me because I was actually going to the park and doing a lot of reading and writing. So the dialogue kind of organically came from that. One of the biggest things for me, especially when I'm watching movies, is if the dialogue feels like it's something a real person would say. Even if the characters are in very specific circumstances, I still want to be able to feel like this is something that feels organic. It feels like they're not acting. Essentially, the short film is really just one small scene. It's basically just a dialogue. I tend to like movies where it's just a conversation between two people. There's something about that genre that I think directors like because they're able to ask questions that they want to ask and have the audience kind of get into their brain a little bit. And I think that for me, I am really interested in philosophy and, asking questions about why. I think I'm a very curious person. So I feel like being able to get the ideas about why things are the way that they are, that really fits into just a dialogue between two people. It only really took me like 20 or 30 minutes to write the first draft of the script. And this is literally just a Word doc, pulled it up, started writing, not in any particular format, just writing the two characters and just having the dialogue. And I was actually really surprised that it's not that hard to write a script. I mean, obviously you want to have some kind of arc in the story, you want, all these different pieces of script writing, but I think that what was the hardest thing for me, and this kind of goes through the creative process altogether, is just what it actually takes to get to the point of starting. And you go through all this stuff in your head and you want it to be a certain way and whatever. Like, this is a process that I go through all the time, even in making this video, and I don't like it at all because I just want to get to the point where I'm starting. I don't have advice for you there. I think just open up the Google Doc, start writing, put it on paper first in your notes app, whatever. This short film is just a small dialogue, and essentially it's just one scene. So once I had the script ready, I really wanted to be very intentional about finding people for the project. So what I did was I went on my Raya, I changed it to friends mode, and I literally just wrote like, hey, I'm looking for actors and models for projects that I'm working on. So I met Tanisha, who's the actress in this, and we talked and we kind of had a similar creative understanding. While we were chatting, I was talking about, having written this thing, and I asked her if she wanted to be part of it. Obviously that was dependent on if she liked the script after she read it. So now I felt this momentum because I got the script, I have an actor, I was gonna be the other actor, obviously. And now it was just about like taking every small piece, to move forward with it. So then I reached out to Robert. He's a filmmaker and a photographer friend of mine. I just asked him the same thing. I was like, hey, I'm gonna work on this project. Here's a script. Do you want to be the camera assist, and do you want to help with the project? He says yes, and now like we're moving. While I was doing that, the only other things to really figure out were the equipment that I would need, and location scouting, and just figuring out like how are we gonna do this in a few hours. Not only did I feel like it was important that the chemistry between the characters and kind of the facial reactions off of the dialogue was going to be important, I felt like the scene really needed to be bright and conducive to what was actually in the script. And I think that we went there in the morning at like 7 a.m. and I think it worked out perfectly because it was exactly what I wanted it to look like in my head. So before we go into the actual shooting, let's talk about the gear. Now, I'm not like the biggest gearhead. I've been shooting on an A7S III for like the last 6 years. I am not really interested in that too much, but I just want to give you an idea of what the setup was. Basically, I just have the the rig. I've got a handle on the side. This would be the A7S III. I rented out a Sony 35mm 1.4, and I wanted the depth of field to go down to 1.4. Like, I really wanted that separation, and I think that is exactly what you see. Then I have a small rig top handle. You got the recording button on the top here. The Atomos Ninja 5, I think this one's like 5 inches, so I liked using this. And that is pretty much it. A Rode mic that I'm using right now that was used on here. And also we had lav mics, the DJI lav mics that we were using to capture our separate recordings on, individual lavs. The last thing I'll say about the setup is I did buy the Nisi ND filters. I've had filters before that were just kind of like random purchases because I needed them at the time. I realized that that was not going to work. This is the 4-stop, and then I have the 1 to 5 stop that is on my camera right now. And the greatest thing about this is that it's magnetic. So all you have to do is just line it up to this little white line, and then it doesn't come off. So I have all of my lenses set up with the step-up rings already on them. So once I have to, switch lenses or whatever, all I do is just pop them on, lock them, and I'm good to go. I don't have to go through all that, trying to get it off and then put it back on and just wasting time. So this was really the kind of only purchase for the short film, and I'm just going to be using it moving forward. So it's really just an investment. And then the other thing was renting the 35mm. Shooting the actual short film was really fun and not difficult at all. Because I did the pre-production, and even when writing the script, I knew exactly what I wanted from, each shot, and the insert shots, everything was basically in there. So the only thing that we had to do was really focus on the acting. It actually felt really natural to be in the scene and then also be able to watch it afterwards and kind of direct at the same time. For whatever reason, like, doing that to me felt really normal and just felt like part of the process. It didn't feel like I was doing one thing as a filmmaker and then I had to do this extra thing as an actor. It kind of really felt like conducive to each other to be able to do both. So during the filming, I was obviously, watching the playback. Tanisha said that she doesn't really watch her own playback, which I think makes sense as an actor to kind of have the feeling of what that particular take looked like or felt like, and then just kind of leaving it there instead of being in your head and like watching yourself back. So once we did that, we had a couple of things that we were shooting on the fly, like making some decisions for the inserts or like, what looked good or sounded good. I changed a bit of the dialogue kind of on the fly, and then I ended up using that piece. I think that feels really good to be able to just kind of play with it. And when you have people around you that are working with you on a project where it's not like high stakes, you just want to feel something organic, it feels really good to be able to do that. So I know that on some other like commercial stuff that I've done, it doesn't feel fun to be shooting. Not that, everything is supposed to be fun when you're, when you're working for yourself and you're creating, but there's a really big difference when you work on your own projects and you really get a feeling of, okay, this is what things are supposed to feel like. When there's no thing that you have to make for the client, it's for you, and you just want to get to the most authentic, the most, real version of what you're trying to do, and everyone is kind of in on it and you're working together. So that part was really great. We wrapped, and I just kind of went around afterwards before I returned the lens to shoot these little postcard looking things of the neighborhood around it so we can get a little bit more context of where we are. I didn't do that in the beginning because I wanted to get the viewer to get locked in right away. As soon as you tilt down, you're right in the middle of it, you're on the park bench, and then the story begins. So afterwards, when she's walking away, and I want to show a little bit more of the neighborhood. So that's what I did after we wrapped, returned the lens, and then now we're all good. We are, ready to edit. when you do the pre-production and you know exactly what you want it to be, it just becomes like this fun puzzle. You already know what the puzzle is supposed to look like. You have the pieces and now you're just putting it together. When you're doing client work that is more run and gun and you don't do pre-production, it becomes this thing where you shoot way too much and there's no puzzle photo that you can look at on the box. It's just a bunch of puzzle pieces. And you put stuff together and you make it whatever you want, and then it passes as an edit or whatever. I wanted to make sure I didn't do that because when you have a project that you care about, you obviously want it to look a certain way. So I'm in the edit. I even knew what song I wanted to use by the Fontaines. That was kind of picked very early. It was even in the script. This song by Fontaines DC plays. I did add another instrumental because I felt like there were these big gaps between the music and it just like didn't feel right without having something else to kind of fill that part. The color was very fast as well because I kind of knew what I wanted to do and I had some power grades saved that kind of give me a good basis for where I want to go with the color. I realized that we didn't get the cleanest audio. The scratch audio that we were taking from the Rode mic wasn't exactly lining up to the lav mics that we had, and that just made it a longer process for me instead of having a clapper or whatever and then just knowing exactly how to line those two up. So that was like unnecessary time wasted, but other than that, like it was a really smooth process and I'm really looking forward to just doing more of these to be able to convey the feeling that I felt in writing it, and I think that that really came through. You know, just being able to like go through the reps of this, because once you shoot a short, like really short, this was like 5 minutes, you realize that doing something feature length or even just a longer short film that has more scenes, has more people, it's really just the same thing. You're not really doing that much more. The only thing is more logistics, more production, you know, more people to manage and have involved. Once you get your first short film down, you kind of just like pull the curtain back and be like, okay, it's just this. There's not really that much more to it than this, and that's like a good feeling. That was my first short film. It's called I Hope You Find What You're Looking For. You can see it somewhere on the screen right now. You know, I'm really proud of it. I felt like I was able to convey what I was writing and what I was thinking into this tangible thing, and it feels really authentic to me, and yeah, I'm just really proud of it. So give it a watch if you want. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. The one thing that I would say to summarize this whole thing is just don't try to figure out how to make a short film. In my whole career, trying to figure out like what's the best way to be creative, how do I get rid of these like roadblocks, how do I do it, like there's no answer. You can do this for like, you know, 10 years or whatever and search for an answer, and there's no answer. Just open the doc, open the, you know, notebook, just start writing. There are some links below. One of them is to my Substack where I talk about this kind of stuff, you know, kind of navigating creative things, philosophy, and just other thoughts about what it feels like to be a creator full-time and kind of go through all these different things. I also have my prints from New York, Japan, Hawaii, and Greece. If you have some empty walls that need filling, you can check that out. Now it's time for you to write your short film, make your short film, do it now.